I want to go to something completely different in the law enforcement field now. A really alarming new crime, a new spate of crimes in Australia. They're characterised as virtual kidnapping. And I'm joined now by Detective Chief Superintendent Darren Bennett from the New South Wales Police Force State Crime Commander. Thanks for joining us, Darren. Just explain to us, I've read a number of cases, there's another one reported today, about these virtual kidnapping scams. In the end, they get money out of people overseas. Explain to us how these scams operate.
Yeah, there's a variety of methods they do this. We've had 9 of these scams so far in Sydney this year, all targeting Chinese nationals who are overseas students. What happens essentially is that these scammers contact people and then pretend to be in a position of authority in China or another country, usually policing agencies, and they try and extort money out of them over a period of time by telling them that they've been suspected of a crime or something else in China. The main threat is about removing their rights in Australia, either deportation or losing their education rights. And we've pretty much stopped it in recent times with a media campaign we did in July. But this one that's come to light today is significant because it changes their MO and it was successful.
So these are Chinese nationals studying in Australia, yet they're able to be convinced and intimidated by someone pretending to be some sort of communist Chinese official overseas. Are they convinced over the phone, in person or in emails?
They're convinced over the phone, largely on voice over internet protocols, which are almost impossible to trace. So they receive a call and they're very convincing. They're convinced that they're talking to Chinese authorities, usually the police, and the scam goes from there. The message we want to send is that the Chinese police will never contact anyone on the telephone and ask for money, and nor will anyone else from the Chinese government.
Yeah, that's a very important message to get out there. It just doesn't happen, so don't fall victim to it. But you mentioned 9 cases in New South Wales this year. In some of those cases, if not all, relatives back in China have paid over money to these virtual kidnappers to guarantee the safety of their children in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. And on occasions there's been a lot of money, which makes us realise that they target people who they know are of some means, and they've been quite successful. As I said, we've nearly stopped it, but the only way we can chase these matters up is to prevent them in the first place, because everything happens offshore and we don't know who it is. So we need to prevent these offences rather than investigate them and charge offenders.
Right. So you believe the actual criminal masterminds here, the actual plotters and criminals here, are operating outside of Australia and just preying on Australians, or could there be connections to people in this country?
Yeah, that's right. Look, we can't find any connections in this country. We are certain it's offshore. The money in this last occasion went to the Bahamas, and we don't know where the perpetrators are. The Chinese authorities are helping us enormously track down these places. They're industrial in their scale and they're highly proficient. And they might send out a heap of different scams and only get very few people who fall for them. But when they do, the money paid over can go into the millions of dollars.
Extraordinary stuff. Thanks for bringing us up to date, Darren.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Detective Chief Superintendent Darren Bennett there with a warning. If you happen to know any Chinese students or be in contact with them, it simply does not happen. Chinese authorities will not contact them and demand money from them or their families. But it goes to show, we talk about Chinese interference in this country when it comes to politics. Here's criminal interference. Very, very worrying indeed.